Carl Jung believed that the most persistent emotional struggles we face often originate not in the external world, but in the depths of the unconscious. One of the most haunting challenges is the lingering presence of someone who is no longer part of our lives, yet continues to occupy space in our minds. This psychological residue can feel like a shadow that follows us, appearing in moments of silence, dreams, or sudden emotional waves. According to Jung, such attachments are rarely about the person themselves. More often they are symbols, representations of something much deeper within us. That person may embody an old wound, a fear we've yet to face, or a part of ourselves we've rejected. Jung taught that the unconscious communicates through symbols, and people who are hard to forget often serve as mirrors reflecting unresolved inner conflicts. Letting go, then, is not just an act of forgetting. It is the beginning of self-inquiry. It is the first step into understanding why this person holds such power over the mind, and what that reveals about the inner world yearning to be healed. Carl Jung emphasized that the key to understanding emotional entanglement lies not in the other person, but in the emotions they awaken within us. When someone continues to live in your mind, the real question is not, why can't I forget them? But, what do they awaken in me that I haven't yet faced? According to Jung, the unconscious uses emotions as messages, symbols pointing to parts of the self that remain unresolved, whether it's sorrow, longing, anger, or confusion. These feelings are not merely reactions to the past, but clues to your internal landscape. Jung taught that emotions serve as guides, inviting us to look inward rather than outward. The person who lingers is often just a trigger. What matters is the story your mind tells when you think of them. By shifting focus from the external figure to the internal reaction, you begin a journey of profound self-awareness. Jung would urge you to sit with these emotions, to listen to them without judgment, and to ask what deeper truth they are trying to reveal. Only then can healing truly begin. Carl Jung taught that true healing begins with acceptance, an inner recognition that clinging to what no longer serves us only deepens our suffering. Many people believe that letting go is a form of giving up, a quiet admission of failure. But Jung would argue the opposite. To release someone who no longer belongs in your life is not an act of resignation. It is an act of profound self-love. Often people stay mentally bound to a relationship not because of love, but because of the idea of what could have been. Jung understood the danger of attachment to fantasy. He believed that the mind creates illusions to avoid the discomfort of reality, spinning endless what-ifs and imaginary outcomes that keep the soul tethered to the past. Letting go, in Jung's view, is not forgetting. It is the courageous decision to stop living in illusion. It is reclaiming energy lost in projection and redirecting it inward, where real growth happens. It is choosing truth over fantasy, presence over memory, and healing over longing. Carl Jung introduced one of the most powerful concepts in psychology, the shadow. He defined it as the unconscious part of the psyche that holds everything we refuse to see in ourselves, our fears, insecurities, desires, and shame. When someone continues to live in your mind, Jung would say they are not just a memory, they are a reflection of your unintegrated shadow. The traits you admire or resent in them often mirror qualities you have disowned in yourself. That persistent presence is not random. It is symbolic. According to Jung, the unconscious compels us to confront our shadow by projecting it onto others. The person who haunts your thoughts may represent the parts of your identity you've been unwilling to face. When you begin to work with your shadow through honest self-reflection, you stop externalizing your pain. You no longer blame others for your suffering. Instead, you reclaim emotional responsibility. Jung believed this was the beginning of real transformation, not denying your darkness, but integrating it. because only by embracing what you've hidden can you begin to feel whole again. Carl Jung believed that pain is not something to escape, but something to understand. He taught that every emotion, no matter how uncomfortable, carries meaning. When someone continues to occupy your thoughts, it often brings waves of sorrow, regret, or longing. But instead of resisting these feelings, Jung would urge you to listen to them, because in his view, pain is not an enemy, it is a guide. Jung emphasized that the psyche does not waste energy. If a feeling persists, it's because it has a lesson to offer. Emotional suffering, he believed, was the soul's attempt to draw attention to something unresolved. By avoiding pain, we only deepen it. But by embracing it with awareness, we uncover its message. To Jung, integration was the key to healing, not avoidance. Wholeness comes when we stop dividing ourselves into acceptable and unacceptable parts. By honoring every emotion as part of the human experience, we move closer to authenticity. Pain then becomes not a sign of weakness, but a signal of transformation, the beginning of deep inner work and lasting freedom. Carl Jung believed that the journey to wholeness begins with individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, separate from the masks, roles, and attachments that once defined you. When a person remains lodged in your thoughts, it's often because your sense of identity has become entangled with them. You may have built a version of yourself around their presence, their validation, or your imagined future together. But Jung would ask, who are you outside of that story? He taught that true selfhood does not come from relationships or external approval, but from deep internal alignment. When you lose someone, you're not just grieving their absence, you're grieving the part of yourself you abandoned while loving them. This is why their memory feels so heavy. Jung would encourage you to reclaim those parts, the dreams you set aside, the passions you neglected, the truths you silenced. By doing so, you begin to rebuild your inner world, not as a reaction to loss, but as a return to self. This is not about forgetting them. It's about remembering who you were before them and who you are meant to become. Carl Jung often emphasized the importance of inner work, deliberate, reflective practices that allow the unconscious to speak. He believed that healing does not happen through passive time alone, but through intentional engagement with the self. For those haunted by the presence of someone they can't forget, Jung would recommend tools that help translate emotional chaos into clarity. The first is introspection. Setting aside moments of silence to ask, what does this person represent in my life, can reveal the hidden archetypes at play. Jung saw introspection as a dialogue with the soul, a way to uncover symbolic meaning behind emotional attachments. Writing is another powerful method. Jung himself kept detailed journals to explore the landscape of the unconscious. He encouraged others to write without censorship, allowing buried emotions and forgotten insights to surface naturally. Lastly, visualization can be transformative. Imagining yourself releasing that person, like letting go of a rope, can symbolically sever psychic ties. Jung believed the unconscious responded to symbols and images more than logic, making this a deeply effective practice. These tools are not rituals of forgetting, but acts of reclaiming power. Through them, the mind becomes clearer, the heart lighter, and the self more whole. Carl Jung understood that transformation unfolds not in a straight line, but in cycles and layers. Healing from emotional attachment, especially to someone who still lives in your mind, is not a race. It's a rhythm. Jung taught that the psyche has its own natural tempo, and forcing progress only creates resistance. There will be days of clarity followed by days of emotional relapse. This, he believed, is not failure. It is growth in motion. To support this delicate process, Jung emphasized the importance of one's environment. The people around you influence your energy and mindset. If you are constantly surrounded by those who diminish your spirit or reinforce negative thought patterns, your healing slows. Jung believed that our relationships mirror our internal world. When we change within, we must also choose relationships that reflect that inner shift. Finding a supportive community is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Being among people who uplift you, respect your boundaries, and encourage your evolution reinforces the belief that you are worthy of peace. Time alone is not enough. Space to breathe, and people who reflect your potential are what Jung considered essential ingredients for true psychological liberation. At the heart of Carl Jung's teachings lies the concept of individuation, the process of becoming your most authentic self by integrating all parts of your psyche, both conscious and unconscious. Letting go of someone who still occupies your mind is not simply about removing them from your thoughts. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that were lost in the attachment. Jung believed that much of our suffering stems from identifying with what we've lost, rather than with what we can become. When a relationship ends or a connection fades, the mind often clings to the past as a source of identity. But in doing so, it resists evolution. Individuation asks you to shift that focus from holding on to becoming. This process includes embracing the emptiness that follows release. Jung did not view emptiness as a void, but as fertile ground, space where something new can take root. He taught that creativity, purpose, and clarity often arise from this silence. It is in the letting go that your true self begins to emerge, not shaped by the expectations of others, but guided by your inner truth. This is the path of real freedom, not erasing the past, but transforming through it. Carl Jung believed that personal transformation is not a private event. It is a ripple that touches everything around you. When one person heals, the collective shifts. Letting go of someone who still lives in your mind is not just an internal battle. It's a courageous act that redefines how you exist in the world. Jung taught that by confronting your shadows, releasing projections, and embracing your authenticity, you become a living example of conscious evolution. This journey doesn't erase the past. It reshapes your relationship with it. Memories may still arise, but you no longer serve them. Instead, they serve you as reminders of your strength, your growth, and how far you've come. Jung would say that every painful experience, when fully integrated, becomes a stepping stone toward wisdom. When you no longer seek wholeness in someone else, you discover it was within you all along. You begin to live with purpose, not to prove something, but to become something. And in doing so, you light the way for others. Jung believed that the one who transforms themselves transforms the world. By choosing healing, you not only reclaim your life, you give others permission to reclaim theirs.